guard reported with permanent job as boater guard. That is all.
This map shows just a fraction of the subsea oil and gas pipelines that stretch across the seabed worldwide. These pipelines hold immense importance in the lives of billions of people. But have you ever wondered how on earth these pipelines are built? Enter the world of saturation divers. These incredible men and women endure the most inhospitable environments imaginable, working tirelessly in places humans simply were never meant to go. They spend up to 28 days at a time under the crushing weight of the ocean, either living in an underwater habitat on the seabed or in a tiny pressurised capsule on board a support vessel. Even on a good day, visibility in the pitch black depths is a challenge, and curious onlookers are never far away. Today, let's delve into the history of saturation diving and unravel the mysteries behind this feat of human endurance and uncover why saturation diving is undoubtedly the most terrifying occupation on the planet.
Aquanauts Carpenter and Eaton have entered Sealab
2. The depths of the ocean have long captivated human imagination with an insatiable desire to uncover its secrets. Early explorations to significant depths relied on submersible vessels like the bathysphere, which was basically a 2-ton sealed steel ball that allowed Otis Barton and William Beebe to descend to a depth of 3,028 feet in 1934. Despite the impressive achievement, dives in a sealed vessel offered no exposure to the effects of increased pressure, and it is these effects that saturation diving takes its name from. During this process, the diver's blood and tissues become saturated with breathing gas, which has been compressed to the point that it's able to pass from the lungs through to the bloodstream. If the diver were to surface too quickly without allowing time for the gases to be expelled through the lungs, the gas would expand in the bloodstream and rapidly prove fatal. Saturation diving is unique in that once the diver becomes fully saturated, they cannot absorb any more gas unless they descend even further, which means they are able to stay at that depth indefinitely without decompression times increasing, which is generally 24 hours for every 100 feet of descent. And that really is the core of what saturation diving is, and explains why these guys spend so long in this environment. It would be extremely expensive to send them down for a day's work just to decompress them for 3 days, and we would probably end up paying ridiculous prices at the petrol pump or something.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Okay, so how did we go from basically an oversized fishing sinker like the bathysphere to being able to spend as much time as we like on the seabed? On December 22nd, 1938, the first deliberate saturation dive was carried out by Edgar End and Max Knoll, who spent 27 hours breathing regular air at a depth of 101 feet. It's worth noting that they were breathing the same air as you and I are now, and up until this point, this was exactly what was holding humans back from diving deeper. On the surface, the air we breathe is 79% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, which is obviously perfectly safe. But under pressure, both of these gases can become very dangerous for different reasons. Nitrogen is linked to decompression sickness and narcosis, while oxygen actually becomes toxic after a certain point, leading to blurred vision and convulsions, as well as a handful of other unpleasant symptoms, none of which you would want to be dealing with when you are submerged hundreds of feet below the surface of the ocean. But luckily for the evolution of saturation diving, nothing quite pushes progression like two superpowers arguing over who has the biggest stick, and a solution to the limitations of breathing regular air while under pressure was just around the corner. We all know the story of the US and Soviet space race in the 50s and 60s, But what's often overlooked is their race to dominate submarine warfare and explore the depths of the ocean. In 1957, George F. Bond launched his Genesis project at the Naval Submarine Medical Research Laboratory. Through rigorous testing, Bond proved that humans could endure prolonged exposure to different breathing gases and increased environmental pressures. This pivotal moment sparked the birth of saturation diving and the US Navy's Man in the Sea program. In 1964, the US Navy pioneered saturation diving for their first undersea laboratory, Sealab 1, which allowed them to spend extended periods in the deep sea without the risk of decompression sickness. 4 aquanauts lived and worked in a seafloor laboratory at a depth of 193 feet for 11 days, breathing a gas mixture of helium, oxygen, and nitrogen. The following year, Sealab 2 touched down on the seafloor off the coast of California at a depth of 203 feet. This successful 30-day mission earned Aquanaut Scott Carpenter a phone call of congratulations from President Lyndon B. Johnson. The naval aquanauts are often credited as the pioneers thanks to their extended stays on the sea floor, but an intriguing story actually predates these achievements. Several years earlier, a Swiss mathematician, physicist, and deep-sea explorer named Hans Keller achieved a successful dive to 728 feet in Lake Maggiore on the Swiss-Italian border. He utilized a unique breathing gas mixture that he developed alongside Swiss physician Albert Bullmann, which reduced the risk of decompression sickness. Keller's achievement did not go unnoticed, and none other than the Shell Oil Company, who had a sneaking suspicion that the Dutch oil fields may extend under the North Sea, sponsored his expedition to the US in 1962 to attempt a new depth record. Keller prepared for his dive using a high-pressure tank run by the Navy Experimental Diving Unit. And on December 3, 1962, near California's Santa Catalina Island, he descended to an astonishing depth of 1,020 feet with the aid of a dive bell and an umbilical line feeding his secret mixture of breathing gases. This achievement set a record that stood for over 10 years, however, it came at a high cost. Keller barely made it back to the surface, losing consciousness in the process, and his dive partner Peter Small died due to decompression complications during the ascent. Support diver Chris Whitaker also lost his life attempting to rescue them. Tragically, Whitaker's body was never found. In the aftermath of Keller's record-breaking dive, the Shell Oil Company would emerge as the major winners. In return for funding the dive, they gained access to his undisclosed mixture of breathing gases, which would play a big part in their offshore oil exploration efforts. The Navy's Sealab program also ended in tragedy. In February of 1969, Sealab 3 was deployed to a depth of 610 feet near the location of Sealab 2's mission. However, it was soon discovered that the habitat was experiencing leakage issues.
Gas is escaping through penetration fittings in Sealab's hull, and more gas must be pumped down from the surface to keep the habitat from flooding.
During an attempt to save the habitat, Aquanaut Barry Cannon lost consciousness and passed away due to an error in his breathing device. In the rush to save the habitat, the necessary chemicals for removing carbon dioxide from exhaled breathing gas had been forgotten. This led the Navy to halt any further use of underwater habitats in their saturation diving endeavours. Interestingly enough, it was actually Westinghouse who carried out the first commercial saturation dive in 1965, which was aimed at carrying out maintenance on the Smith Mountain Dam. It never ceases to amaze me how many pies these long-standing corporations have had their fingers in over the years. But anyway, it was clear that the oil and gas industry would be the major driving force in the progression of saturation diving in the coming decades. There were some pretty terrible incidents along the way that took the lives of those involved. However, today saturation diving is far less experimental and carried out with strict procedures in place. With oil extraction winding down and unmanned vessels becoming more capable, saturation diving is a shrinking industry. However, the most intricate and important jobs will no doubt be reserved for the brave few who dare to face the cold, dark ocean floor for many years to come. Alrighty, that's a wrap on saturation diving. This video has been both a pleasure and a pain to make because I am really trying to push myself to do the best work I possibly can, from research all the way through to production. So if you're still watching, that means you either enjoyed the video or you're a family member. So I would really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button, and I will see you again soon. Fortnightly uploads from here on out. If it's been more than 14 days and I haven't uploaded, comment down below, get your together. Alrighty, I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Thank you guys.